Jon Anik and Kenny Florian podcast. Jon Anik and Kenny Florian.
I f***ing love him. I can't get enough of him.
Let's hear that Boston next.
Big jab there from Duffy, and Frank Mir is hurt now. Down goes Duffy, out cold. Frank Mir does it again. Rock'em sock'em robots here. Oh my goodness.
Hyperbole. There are a couple of absolutely self-involved bullshit artists.
Here are your hosts, Jon Anik and Kenny Florian.
Well, if you don't have energy this week, I don't know what to tell you. UFC 300 is nearly upon us. Monday, April 8th, 2024. It is episode 480 of the Anik and Florian podcast. Ken Flo, I remember back in 2009, you were getting ready for UFC 101. Do you remember ever bemoaning the fact that you didn't compete at UFC 100? Anderson Silva headlined UFC 101 alongside you and BJ Penn. Do you remember back then if there was any discourse about competing at 101 versus 100?
Not really. I was at UFC 100, to promote 101. BJ Penn wasn't there, by the way.
That's right.
And then I had to go to Philly, and BJ Penn wasn't there, by the way. Listen, I remember it being an amazing card, and having fought on a card with Brock Lesnar before. People are going to watch, right? So I remember it being an amazing night. Of course, GSP taking on Thiago Alves, and an amazing fight. Did I get that right? Is it Thiago Alves?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. There was just an energy and excitement there for UFC 100, which was tremendous. And I think it kind of bled over to UFC 101 because we hit amazing numbers. I think because of it, because it was such a good card. I think it kind of played a part, certainly. Did I answer your question? By the way?
You did. And I have a little bit in terms of some numbers to back you up on the pay-per-views in just a second. It's a little bit different. Back then, UFC 100, just monumental, obviously. Big name after big name at a time when mixed martial arts was in a different place. And then UFC 101 had two of the biggest names in the sport in Anderson Silva and BJ Penn. But I do remember, even as the vice president and not president of Team Florian back then, I was just the VP back then. But I remember thinking competitively, this is not good. We already had heard that BJ Penn was pulling out all the stops to try to get ready for Ken Flo. He's in the best shape of his life. And then promotionally, he's not showing up when you are there at UFC 100. But UFC 100 did 1.3 million pay-per-view buys, if Tapology is to be believed. And then UFC 101 did 850,000 pay-per-view buys shortly thereafter. Does that sound accurate to you, Ken Flo?
I think it was close. It was almost 1 million, I believe. I think it was over 900,000 was the thing. All I know that was the biggest envelope or biggest check I got in an envelope from the UFC ever after that fight against BJ Penn. So I was very thankful after that.
So if we get to 1,000 episodes, will you tell our audience what that check was?
Yeah.
Wow. I can't believe we got him to say yes so easily, because if we go 5 days a week, Ken Flo, we're going to come up on episode 1,000 pretty quickly. But UFC 300 beckons in about 5 days. Ooh. I am so overwhelmingly excited. I was doing the voiceovers over the weekend for a lot of the in-house stuff. And for the first time I can remember, and I've been calling UFC fights since January 20th, 2012, I did not need the pronunciation guide for a single voiceover. And that includes all the names of maybe the fighters these athletes have beaten that could show up in some of those combo features that you hear us voice. There's never been a situation like this before where there are so many big names that I literally did not have to go into the pronunciation guide a single time. So that is very exciting. And we will have a full preview with predictions coming up later this week. A lot of UFC 300 stuff with Longo coming up here in about 23 minutes or so. But later this week, we've got a timer and everything because Ken Flo and Brian Petrie are going to give you predictions for all 13 fights at UFC 300, as well as spending their money in Place Your Bets. But we've got a UFC fight night to recap. So to that end, Headlines is brought to you by Cuervo. Now's a good time to enjoy the tequila that invented tequila. And speaking of Cuervo, by the way, Ken Flo, you're heading to Las Vegas for UFC 300, or at least that's the word on the street.
I am indeed. I can't wait, dude. I'm excited to see you, of course. We'll be doing a little thing with the fans, promoting Cuervo and UFC 300, of course. And it's going to be an amazing event, man.
All right, so Brandon Moreno, the former UFC flyweight champion, is going to be doing an appearance for Cuervo. Ken Flo and I are going to be there. It is going to be Friday night April 12th, Tom's Watch Bar, New York, 6:30 p.m. Eastern. Meet the Assassin Baby, Brandon Moreno. Meet Kenny Florian, Cuervo, along with DraftKings. Friday, April 12th, on the eve of UFC 300 in Las Vegas. We want to see our Anik and Florian podcast listeners and viewers show out. Tom's Watch Bar, New York. We'll see you on the eve of UFC 300. Actually, maybe Evan Longoria might actually show up.
Hey.
Add a little star power to the festivities.
Yes.
All right, UFC Fight Night, Allen versus Curtis 2. Now, this middleweight main event, not a fight of the year contender for me, per se. It actually didn't even end up getting the bonus for fight of the night. That being said, a tremendous watch for 25 minutes, back and forth affair that in my mind actually could have gone either way, but it's Brendan Allen over Chris Curtis by split decision, 49-46, 48-47, and then one judge had it 47-48 for the action man, Chris Curtis. Kenflo, your thoughts on the main event this past weekend?
Yeah, listen, I thought it was a pretty solid fight. I think we saw some new tools from both men as well. I think both men fought extremely well, and that's why it was such a close fight. I thought Allen showed some nice tools, especially in regards to that elbow in tight. You knew I was going to mention that. That elbow in tight was just nasty, was hurting Curtis on the inside, which I think caused him to be a little hesitant, especially early on, and being in that range that Chris Curtis typically is most dangerous from. So I thought that was a brilliant tactic early on. However, Brendan Allen was starting to eat shots on the feet. I also thought he fought smart as he got into some of those exchanges and was getting hurt or at least eating some of those shots when he was level changing, hitting a double leg, which, Chris Curtis is typically very good at stopping, but Brendan Allen's ability to level change at the right time and drive through to keep those feet moving as he penetrated with that double leg was just a thing of beauty. Also, him cutting the angle when he needed to is what was allowing him to put Curtis on his back. And speaking of back, his ability to take the back was very impressive as well. I was very nervous personally because right now I think I'm in second place for most rear naked chokes in UFC history.
Got to slow this kid down.
He's knocking on the door with 6 and I got 7. Damian Maia sitting there at the top, the legend that he is. And so I was getting a little nervous. He had the back there, wasn't able to finish. Chris Curtis did his homework in that regard, was escaping extremely well. So it was a great back and forth throughout the fight. The way I scored it is I had Brendan Allen round 1. I had Chris Curtis round 2. And then I think I had 3 and 4. Oh, no, sorry. I had 2 and 3 for Chris Curtis. And then I had 4 and 5 for Brendan Allen. I think that's how it was. Something like that.
And you don't think the president of Team Florian is sitting there just thinking anything but a rear naked choke here? We want to keep these records as long as possible. All right, so Sean Strickland had this to say about his right-hand man, training partner, and teammate Chris Curtis. He was so out of shape and underprepared for this fight and still won. You don't say no to the UFC, LOL, every fighter knows that. They say jump, you say how high, LMAO. Should have finished high school. Laughed my ass off. UFC filmed Kurt. I did one round of sparring with him and let him win. The camera crew was confused because they know me. I said if I spar him remotely hard, he will lose all confidence going into this fight because he's so out of shape. No excuses, but take zero pride in this victory. So Sean Strickland has a head-to-head win over Brendan Allen by TKO. Now, Chris Curtis has long pined for a UFC main event. Face on the poster. Got it done, but seemingly if you take Strickland at his word, Kenny, while he trains every day, wasn't necessarily in 5-round shape. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, listen, I think it's a different thing when you are mentally preparing for a fight as opposed to just training every day. Mentally, it's just a very different thing. And I also think that the way that you structure your training, the intensity of it, how you manage it is also very different as well. And I think sometimes there's a bit more anxiety when you have a short notice fight as a fighter, as you're preparing, as you head into fight night, that fight week. There's a little bit of doubt sometimes that creeps in. Did I do everything? Was I able to prepare and, dot my I's and cross my T's and all those things? So that definitely could have plagued Curtis. However, I thought the output was very impressive from Curtis nonetheless. I think he pushed when he needed to push. Perhaps he could have pushed a little bit earlier in some of those rounds prior. But I think his body ultimately failed him there with that leg. Whether it's a torn hamstring or not, I don't know. But that also, plays a part in it because maybe you're pushing a little bit harder than you than you should have. Maybe your body's not 100% prepared because of that short notice. So it was tricky, man. All in all, I thought it was a really good performance from Curtis.
I did too. I really did. And maybe these guys would meet again in a trilogy situation. They are 1-1 now. I largely agree with your scorecard. And I think a lot of fans have a lot of opinions about scoring and judging after this weekend. I would just say this, as far as the main event is concerned, I feel like, Kenny, damaging moments for Chris Curtis were certainly there, especially in round 3. I just felt like there were too many big moments for Chris Curtis for me to not give him that round. But in round 5, I don't know that Brendan Allen did a lot in the grappling situations, but that combination late in round 5 from Brendan Allen, not that he was on the verge of finishing Chris Curtis per se, but certainly if there had been another 45 seconds or a minute, I think they would have been pretty productive for Brendan Allen. So big picture, I want to give Brendan Allen for a lot of credit for being ready for the 29 minutes, right, that he sort of talked about. And they reference off the front of the broadcast. He knew what type of fight he was in for, Kenny, that Chris Curtis was going to be there for 25 minutes and the 4 minutes between rounds, obviously. And I think because he was expectant that he might have to go 25, he was able to dig deep. And Henry Hoof did a nice job in that corner, I thought, as well. And, Brendan Allen, say what you will, the winning streak is now 7 successive fights.
I think the corner did a fantastic job for Brendan Allen, encouraging him, hey, you don't have to stand up and prove how tough you are. Take him down when you need to. I think that was a very important reminder at a crucial time in that fight. And to get back to your point about that combination in round 5, I truly think that's what won him the fight, because it was very close to that point. And when he saw Chris Curtis hurt and you saw him stumble, to me, that was the nail in the coffin. That was the deciding moment for me in round 5, which I think it came down to. I think Brendan Allen has continued to show not only an evolving skill set, that's one thing, but to show a certain level of maturity, of knowing how to manage rounds, of knowing how to come back, win rounds when you need to. This is what you need. If you want to make an actual challenge for the belt, these are the kind of fights you need underneath your belt to prove it to yourself and to others that, hey, I can do this. I can find a way.
It doesn't seem to me that the middleweight champion, Dricus du Plessis, is going to be like a 3-1 favorite or a prohibitively a favored guy against a lot of these other middleweights, right? Whether it's Israel Adesanya or Strickland, it feels like a lot of these numbers are going to be pretty close. Now, Brendan Allen has won 7 straight fights, 6 in a row. He certainly likes the matchup for himself against Dricus du Plessis. Marvin Vettori was not able to make the walk on this night. Now, it's not out of the realm of possibility that they put together that main event once again between Brendan Allen and Marvin Vettori, but Ken Flo, Brendan Allen has won a lot of fights. I'm not necessarily sure he needs to fight Marvin Vettori at this point in time, even if Vettori has the higher ranking. What are your thoughts on Brendan Allen, where he stacks up, where he stands in this 85-pound division, and how he might do against the incumbent out of South Africa, Dricus du Plessis?
Yeah, listen, I think that he definitely has shown improvement in a lot of different areas. And I love the fact that he went out and asked for that shot against Dricus du Plessis. I think that if I'm the UFC, I might give him one more fight just to prove that point. And I think that each time he gets a fight, we see a better version of Brendan Allen. I also think it'd be a nice matchup to show that you know how to stop the takedowns, because on the feet, I think Dricus probably hits a little bit harder than Brendan Allen. However, I think Brendan Allen is the more technical fighter. That's probably going to be the case against almost every person that fights Dricus du Plessis. But the problem is Dricus puts a pace and a pressure on you, and he is also devastating, or menacing, I should say, with his takedown game. He'll put you on your back. He'll make things rough and tough for you. He will test that gas tank. He will test that resolve. And I think that we were able to see the resolve of Brendan Allen tested here. We were able to see his conditioning tested here. But in regards to defending takedowns, that's something, I would probably have a question mark about. Now, having a fight against someone like a Vettori, I think would prepare him that much more for someone like a Dricus du Plessis. So, and maybe it doesn't end up becoming Dricus. Maybe it's someone like Adesanya. However, just rounding out your skill set and proving it to yourself at a high level that you have the takedown defense necessary, a Marvin Vettori fight might make a lot of sense for the UFC and maybe even for Brendan Allen, even though he probably doesn't want that at this point.
I think that's the fight they're going to remake, Brendan Allen versus Marvin Vettori. And there are a lot of big names working against Brendan Allen in this 85-pound division right now. The last style bender, of course, Sean Strickland has a huge following. And oh, by the way, in June in Saudi Arabia, Robert Whittaker and Khamzat Chimaev are going to engage in a main event that absolutely is a middleweight championship title eliminator. So sometimes, not unlike Bilal Muhammad or Merab Dvalishvili, there are circumstances that surround these long winning streaks that get in the way of championship opportunities. So I think we are all of the belief that it's going to be at least one more for Brendan Allen. It's 6 in a row at 85, 7 in a row overall. And I think the Vettori fight is probably one that's going to come around again. But congratulations to Brendan Allen. And I think you hit on a lot of truths when it comes to Chris Curtis, a man that I think the entire sport just has a lot of respect for, and valiant in defeat in a fight that I think Kenny and I are in alignment, really came down to the final 15 or 20 seconds. All right, co-headliner Ken Flo, Damon Jackson, and Alexander the Great Ape Hernandez. Congratulations to Fortis MMA's DJ. This is a huge win for him. How about all these guys in these hair transplants? Unbelievable. I mean, can we go a week on the Anik Florian podcast without talking about a mixed martial arts head getting new lettuce, right?
Yeah,
just
man. A week. It's crazy. But I might want to talk to those guys just to see, like what the experience was like, kind of if they were satisfied with the results, just like out of curiosity, for a friend.
Not nearly as painful as stem cell.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So Alexander Hernandez misses weight and then ends up on the wrong side of a split decision here against Damon Jackson. Don't need to spend too much time on this. Huge respect, I think, for me, for the overall career and body of work and resolve of Damon Jackson to get a co-main event slot and to take advantage here. And obviously he was the guy that handled the fight before the fight on the scale as well.
Dude, he is tough, man. He is so tough. And, you could tell he fought with, a little bit of FU in him, which was kind of nice. He really wasn't happy with Hernandez, and rightfully so, missing weight and all that stuff. And Damon Jackson showed a lot of toughness like he has shown many times before. But I think he cleaned up his technique a lot. He's by no means a perfect fighter. There's an unorthodox style to him and all that stuff. But I think he showed improvement in this fight and did it in a really important spot. This is a fight that he can continue to build momentum on. And for Hernandez, man, I don't know where he goes from here. It may not be in the UFC.
Right. No, I think that might be not all that far off. He's had a lot of chances, and I just think he's always been trying to sort of channel that form that saw him upset Beneil Dariush in his UFC debut at 155 pounds and looked like he was going to be a real factor. And then, on the front end of the Cerrone fight, said some things and ended up eating his words there. I really like Alexander Hernandez. He's a thoughtful human being, but this is an appreciable setback to your point, to be sure. All right, at Anik Florian Pod, if Ken Flo was Ignacio Bahamondes, would he have thrown a follow-up shot on an essentially concussed Christos Giagos? This is what me and my twin brother talk about, on the weekend. He was over at my house yesterday, and congratulations to Nacho Lahaula, the Mike Valley trained Ignacio Bahamondes. Tremendous knockout with the head kick and all the sportsmanship there at the end to not follow up. I don't know. I think Ken Flo might have followed up, but that's not the lead story. Kenny, people, I think, are really going to find out soon enough just how good Ignacio Bahamondes is. Ludovic Klein's a hard guy to beat. Didn't beat him. Man, did he come back in a big way here and take it to Christos Giagos early and often.
Man, I thought this was a tough matchup for him in a lot of ways, just based on Giagos' wrestling, his takedown game. I thought he was going to try to put Bahamondes on his back and maybe was going to have some success there. But dude, at that range, at those long range weapons, he is just something special. And a huge credit to Mike Valley. It's Mike Valley, right? That he kinds of. So they've done a great job of retaining the creativity, the aggression, and just sharpening that tool repeatedly and getting him to understand when he can do those things as opposed to just doing it randomly. We see a lot of guys throw a lot of spinning shit, but they don't know how to set it up. They're just throwing it because they think it's the right decision. Let me just do it now. They're not reading their opponents. Bahamondes has an intelligence and a timing and a creativity that really makes him a special striker and a fun one to watch, man. Just nasty. Just nasty. And I see a lot of big things in his future, man. He is someone to watch. And I think when you're fighting a guy in Iago's who has been putting it together for a long time now, and, it was interesting because I think one of these guys was kind of take that rocket ship up the division after a win here. And it was Bahamondes, man. And he just looked phenomenal.
A lot of people consider Rafael Fiziev to be one of the best strikers in this lightweight division. Ignacio Bahamondes is one of the best strikers in this division, and he pointed to just his wealth of kickboxing experience as to why he didn't follow up on Giagos, because Giagos was not out cold. Mm-hmm. And certainly, there's a gangster component to these walk-off KOs, right? When you can hit a guy just bone on bone to the face and then walk off into eternity and celebrate. It's an amazing thing, right? But we know Kenflo's want to make sure that those guys are out cold. No, Kenny, what'd you think of the sort of the restraint that Bahamondes showed and just the overall experience? I think starting to really pay dividends with some highlight reel knockouts in the UFC.
Yeah, no, listen, I think that was experience talking, right? He understood fully well that his opponent was out. He didn't need the follow up. However, if you get an opponent that's talking a little bit too much.
Yeah.
You sometimes you send a message to him and the rest of the division of like, you might want to keep your mouth shut. Just saying, like, because maybe that happens. If you're out, maybe I follow up. The referee wasn't there and I'm just doing my job. However, he didn't need to. He understood the dude was hurt. He was a true gentleman, walked away. And that's like the sign of someone who has done that way too many times. Right. So, yeah, gangster, dude.
No, the real storyline is Bahamondes moving forward, right? But I find myself asking my brother, like, hey, if you're fighting Ludovic Klein, right, who might show up in your bracket again, right? Christos Giagos, with respect, a little bit longer in the tooth. He's had some shining moments, right? But go back a fight. If Bahamondes knocks out Ludovic Klein, maybe land an extra shot, right? Try to shorten that guy's career because he might show up in your bracket again, right? That's the non-gentlemanly thought process to it. But thankfully, these are mixed martial arts athletes and not pricks like me.
Yeah.
But Ignacio Bahamondes, Kenny, you were sort of talking about his striking last week and all the rounds with Bilal Muhammad. Iron sharpens iron, training 4 times a day instead of 2. He's a young man, right? Yeah. A young man who recently got married and I think lost a child. And now his wife, he's now married. His wife is expecting another baby. So I think there's been some forced maturity. But, this kid, it's just incredible to think about everything he's been through, leaving Chile to pursue this dream and crying himself to sleep. And you could not have a better mentor or fighter alongside you, I'm telling you, than our guy.
Remember the name! Bilal Muhammad!
And certainly Ignacio Bahamondes moving on up at 155 pounds. Can he be champion? We'll see. A lot of grapplers and wrestlers in this division figured to challenge him and try to take him down. One thing that Paul Felder referenced on the broadcast as well, though, Kenny, just the size. This dude's much bigger than somebody like you. I mean, I know you got a great base and everything, right? But like the way this guy fills out, it looks like a 175-pound fighter.
I don't know how he makes it. And you talk about the length, of course that is evident, but even the size, he's not just like this crazy lanky guy. He's got some muscle to him. And we could see that when he hits people, they fall down.
All right, featured bout in the featherweight division. Jose Machine Gun Matascal moves to 3-0 in the UFC. He escapes by split decision against Morgan Charrier. Huge swing fight, obviously, for you and Petrie, Kenflo, as far as place your bets is concerned. Competitive fight, the fight of the night. But I think you thought it should have gone the other way.
Yeah, listen, and I tweeted about this or made a post on X about it. I hate X, the name X. Anyways, listen, I think it was a great fight, but not a great decision. I thought that the wrong guy won. And it's hard to say that because Chepe, he fights his ass off.
He really does, man.
Time out, man. And he fought the right strategy. He was trying to get to that clinch. He was trying to do a lot of great work with his dirty boxing, his knees in that over-under position up against the cage. So he was able to take away a lot of Charrier's strengths in that fight. However, did he win that fight? No. And I think it was a 29-28. So it's not like it was this blowout robbery, right? It wasn't that. But please go back and watch round 1. And if you think that Chepe won round one, I don't know what to tell you. That just wasn't. If we're looking at, again, the first criteria, effectiveness of grappling, effectiveness of striking, that was executed and performed much better, in my opinion, by Charrier. He was landing the cleaner shots. He was landing the harder shots, especially early on in that round. And there was nothing effective as far as Chippy's grappling, really, that got it done. There was one point where actually Charrier kind of slipped off of like an exchange. He kind of slipped and kind of was on one knee up against the cage there for a little bit. And even then, it wasn't like Chepe took huge advantage of that. There was no position really gained. And the most effective grappling exchange, in my opinion, was Charrier almost submitting him with the guillotine and then almost getting on top. So I don't know, man. The inconsistency in some of these judges and what we're looking at, and I do understand sometimes you get the wrong angle of the cage and you can't quite see what's going on and where they're getting hit. That is a problem, to be sure. But I don't know. Again, we have the luxury of watching it on our couch and watching it on television. But Charrier won that fight. It was at least 2-1 in Charrier's favor. I just thought he got a lot more done when it came to effectiveness of grappling, effectiveness of striking.
And man, Jose Machine Gun Mariscal was hurting for certain after that fight, limp in and just busted up. But he was certainly competitive. I did think it was a close fight. I didn't necessarily score it for the sake of the show, but a $648 swing for Ken Flo and Petrie because they both bet on different sides of that fight. All right, plenty more coming up on the main card from UFC Fight Night, including Charlie the Cannibal Campbell with Ray Longo in about 60 seconds. But as 99% of you know, an action-packed fight card for the ages is taking over Vegas this weekend for UFC 300, and DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of UFC, is giving new customers a shot to turn $5 into $150 instantly in bonus bets with any UFC 300 bet. I think a lot of fans are going to make it a point to bet all 13 fights this weekend. So many different propositions and totals available as well. And a handful of these matchups very close on paper. That includes the light heavyweight championship main event, which has Alex Pereira, a slight -125 betting favorite right now against Jamal Sweet Dreams Hill. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app, use promo code AFPOD. New customers can bet $5 to get $150 instantly in bonus bets only at DraftKings Sportsbook with code AFPOD. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER, or in West Virginia, visit 1-800-GAMBLER.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 plus. Age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See dkng.co/MMA for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources. All right, let us get to it. Big week. It's the Ray Longo Minute.
It's now time for the Ray Longo Minute.
I want you to punch a hole in his fucking chest. That's what I want.
The Ray Longo Minute.
Starring Ray Longo. The Jon Anik and Kenny Florian podcast.
There they are. Look at those guys.
There he is.
What's up, guys?
What do you mean? Everybody loves Raymond. What's up with you?
Nothing. Just enjoying a nice cup of matcha tea on Monday morning.
Matcha?
Look at that.
Wow. Fancy.
Oh, yeah.
So some fans want more Florian, less Anik during the Ray Longo Minute.
I love this show.
Oh, thank you. We love it too.
Do you think
but we try to sort of adhere to the audience and take care of our listeners and viewers. So you may notice more of a Ken Flo slant to the Ray Longo Minute today. You know, I mean, I'm not going to turn my camera off, but I'm just letting you know.
Oh, man.
How are we doing, Ray? UFC 300's 5 days away.
Very good. Very good. Big win for the Cannibal. Fun fight, I thought. I thought he was going to get him out in the first round, but Trevor Peek is tough, man. And then I think it became a fun scrap, but I think Charlie led the dance and he did a great job.
Can we say this was peak Trevor Peek at this point? I mean, it's just a classic Peek fight. He was in his face. It looked like he was going to get taken out, and then he kind of comes back from the dead over and over. You know, I had bet big on Charlie Campbell for the show, and but then it was I was sweating just watching just because Campbell always seemed to be in control for the most part, but and he was certainly the way more technical fighter, but Peak was hanging in there, swinging bombs every second of the fight. And it was almost like Campbell was like, yeah, well, that's fine. Bring it.
Yeah. I mean, it was, what it is, like with fights like that, Kenny, it's does your guy get frustrated because he's hitting him with some big shots and he's not going anywhere? But you just got to be content to just keep bombing on him and keep moving forward. But you could see when Pete came back, and he's very unorthodox, obviously, right? So they almost get you like, did that guy just hit me? I just feel my legs wobble a little bit. I just killed this guy, So, what was that? What was that Chuck Norris movie where they had to throw the guy in the pit at the end? They couldn't kill him. Do you remember that movie?
I don't.
They couldn't kill the guy, so they just, at the end, they just threw him in a big pit. That's where he stayed. That's Trevor Peek. You can't get rid of this guy.
I'm telling you, dude.
You got to throw him in a pit.
When Ray Longo's watching a fight like that, he's watching one of his guys. Are you more comfortable watching it from the couch or from the corner? Where would you rather be? I mean, as far as nerves. I'm
always better in the corner than watching on TV. Yeah. When I learned that, John, is when Quinta, you did the live Tough season with him, and we used to go to the bar and watch. I think that was brutal. No, it's definitely better to be there than it is to not be there.
Are you sober on these fight nights? Do you have a little whiskey or a little vodka or anything? Or are you watching these fights sober?
For the most part, sober.
Yeah. So Charlie, after the fact, and I always think he largely maximizes his mic time, but he said, this wasn't the cleanest performance. And certainly at the end of round 2, it looked a little bit dire there. But what an amazing response by your fighter in round 3. But he still believes he can be the best guy in the world. So where do you think Charlie Campbell is at right now relative to his fighting prime and how good he can actually be?
Look, Charlie's, you could see he's a big, strong kid, and he tries different stuff. He's got great leg kicks. His knees look on point. You don't really see a lot of like the clinch knees anymore. I think he does that great. He got to show off his wrestling a little bit, which wasn't his strong suit. I think this was a good fight because I think Charlie did think he was going to get him out in the first round, and he didn't. And that's where Charlie's going to grow from this fight. All right, guys are tough, even if they're not technical. They might be here for the duration. So I think he makes that adjustment. I think that's the biggest thing for me is that because I really thought he was going to get him out early too. I knew the guy was tough, but sometimes tough when you get a guy and he's bombing on you just isn't good. Like I guarantee you Trevor Peek is beat up this morning. So I think that's the takeaway for me is that, as the guys get tougher and technical, he's gonna have to dig down and change things up a little bit.
But you're right. No overstating the value of those 15 minutes for Charlie Campbell to get stung a little bit there and to prevail. And I certainly thought he won the fight cleanly. It was 30-27 across the board, Ray, by unanimous decision. Yeah. I thought maybe 29-28. There were some wayward cards on the night. I mean, Alexander Hernandez lost the co-main event, but won all 3 rounds on one judge's scorecard. But going into that third round for Charlie, what's your mentality sitting on the couch?
No, I thought Charlie was up. The only way for him to lose was to get just absolutely frustrated and some sort of like freak thing happening to me. But Trevor Peek's that guy. You know what I mean? Like
he is that guy.
You think you're in control, then he's just charging at you. You trip. He's on top of you. It's that type. He's got to create. You got to fall into that chaos for him to be successful. If you could keep a clean head, I think Trevor Peek's going to have to make some adjustments. I mean, he's got the toughness. All he has to do is get somewhat technical, and he's going to be tough. But, that toughness isn't going to last that much longer because he is getting hit a lot. So we'll see. But I wish him the best. Seems like a nice kid.
All right, we got a ton of UFC 300 stuff for you. We'll get to Aljamain Sterling and all of that stuff. But I quickly would like to ask you about the main event between Brendan Allen and Chris Curtis because it only evaporated about 48 hours ago. Jamal Hill and Bilal Muhammad suggestive on X that this was maybe the fight of the year. And perhaps if there were 20,000 people there and it had that elevation, it could hold up. I thought it was a fantastic main event, not necessarily a fight of the year for me, even though it was back and forth. What are your thoughts on Brendan Allen getting his 7th consecutive win over the weekend, Raymond?
Yeah, no, listen, good fight. I had nowhere. I wasn't getting that feeling fight of the night at all. But it was definitely a great scrap, and two guys went at it. I think either guy could have won. Like again, I think the scoring was kind of a little bit all over the place. But I think for Brendan Allen calling for a title shot, he needed to do more than what he did in that fight, and he's been looking really good. But Chris Curtis is a dog, man. He's always in your face.
Yeah.
Great boxing. I think the optics at the end, even though it was at the very end with the hamstring, didn't look good. So that probably, I don't know. What was the scores on that fight again? I forget.
I'll read you the scores. I can't believe you just dropped an optics.
Why is
now
that?
You're using that fucking word, optics?
No, that's Aljo loves that word.
Yeah. Well, you know who just used it on the Anik and Florian podcast? Fucking you. All right. Split decision for Brendan Allen, 49-46, 48-47. And then the third judge had it 48-47, Curtis. Kenny and I felt like Chris Curtis won rounds 2 and 3. And we also are in alignment in our belief that round 5 was sort of there for the taking until a tremendously violent combination from Brendan Allen in the waning seconds of the fight that very well could have won him the round in the fight.
I'm going with that. Definitely wasn't 49-46 though.
Yeah, that
fight was close all the way through. I think I would have wanted to have seen a more dominant performance out of Allen for a title shot, but like again, Curtis, he could have won that fight. I mean, I wasn't really watching the fights to judge anything. I was just literally trying to enjoy myself.
Ray, big week, man. What's the
week?
What's the optics on Aljamain Sterling?
The optics look good, man. He's been sending me sparring. I was just out there a couple of weeks ago. I like this fight. Aljo's an intelligent guy. He's got, I love his kick-heavy program, his fighting style, great wrestling. Have we seen Kattar wrestle at all? We're going to find out, So I think I love the fight. What's the odds on that fight, John?
As of, as of right now, John, do you have that readily available? I had it somewhere. Let's see. I think I have it. Aljamain Sterling, minus 155. He's the favorite. Kattar plus 130.
All right, cool. I think what's John wants to see us drowned in the deep waters with the pulling up information and stuff. Cody, step in. Look, he's not talking. Did they mute him?
I lost my mic. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, now we can hear you. Feel free to jump in, John.
I'm going to fucking lose it on my roadcaster. It's UFC 300 this week. I have all these special things, that I pulled out for Ray Longo. I hope you guys can hear me.
We can hear you. Yeah,
it's a different sound, but...
What the fuck? What in the actual fuck? I was told when I did a home studio like this that no matter how much money you put into it, your tools can fail you, and that's what's happening right now. Yeah. So I got Kemflo's old school shirt. More round. I should probably go on the Y, but check this out, Ray.
Oh, man. There we go.
Look at that.
Come on. Oh, Kenny, that's a shirt and a half, man.
You like that?
Look at that little samurai. I miss Kenny coming out in the samurai uniform. Come on.
Much more on that wide shot. You remember this one from Sugar Rashad Evans?
Oh, yeah. Look at that.
Wow.
Silver Star.
Wow, you're good.
We've been around a long time. It is crazy. I was doing another podcast cheating on this one, and we talked about sort of being the oldest man in the room. And oftentimes I find myself being the oldest man in the room. And the way mixed martial arts is or was, when I started covering MMA in 2007, I never thought, and I had a little conversation with RJ Clifford, our good friend, about this. I never thought that I could be like an MMA OG. And I don't consider myself, Ray, to be that. But 20 years of my professional life essentially devoted to this sport now. And, it's just crazy to see where it is at right now relative to, UFC 101 when Ken Flo was fighting BJ Penn in 2009.
First off, I'm very uncomfortable talking about the oldest guy in the room. I want to get out of this conversation. Are you fucking with me right now? The oldest guy in the room? 20 years.
Both of us are older than you, John. Both of us are older than you, John, by the
man.
way.
Try 40 years deep. Are you kidding? 20.
Well, I guess this is the only room in which I'm not.
You're just an O. Forget the G.
But, like when we do the fighter meetings, right? Like who's the oldest guy in the fucking room, fucking me.
Shit, not when I'm there, but I wish you were right.
All right, so Aljamain Sterling fights this weekend. What is your UFC 300 going to hold otherwise? I mean, obviously, we got Big Ron Pellegrino. We got the Penthouse. Ken Flo's flying in. Kenny and I have an appearance at New York on Friday night. I mean, what are the odds we could get you to show up to that fucking thing?
Well, I'm staying there, so the odds are real good. I'll be there. I'm committing to it.
All right, so 6:30 p.m. Eastern on Friday night. Longo's going to be there as well. Ray, we'll pay you. Don't worry, Jason.
No. It's just as long as I got to see I have to find out when Aljo's doing his dinner. That's the only thing. But I will definitely try to make that though for sure.
Yeah, I mean priorities.
And what do we got with the Penthouse? What are we doing?
Well, I'm just saying, our good friend, owner of the Paradise Cantina, Big Ron Pellegrino, always has that Penthouse locked down. So if you need somewhere to hang out, just go.
Let's do it, man. I'm down.
All right, so I have a few other UFC 300 items to get to with you. I'm having to go one ear on the headphones because everything I hear from you guys is coming out of the computer instead of my cans. So if you'll just bear with me here.
Yeah.
So Alex Pineda is fighting Jamal Hill in the light heavyweight championship main event. I would like a prediction from you on that fight.
I'm not giving you a prediction on that.
All right, well, let me ask you this.
I like Jamal Hill's boxing. He has the tools to get it done. He's got to obviously avoid the power, but I think he's quick enough to get in and out on Pereira. I think Alex is there to be hit, but I don't know. I think it's going to be that's a really fun fight.
If Magomed Ankalaev was fighting Alex Pineda, do you guys think Ankalaev would be the betting favorite or no? And as you marinate on that, I ask it in the context of seemingly money coming in on Jamal Hill. As we sit here on Monday morning, Alex Pineda is minus 125 and Jamal Hill is plus 105. Now, when this fight was announced, a lot of people were like, man, how's Maul going to do it on one wheel, right? He just tore his Achilles, right?
Yeah.
It's essentially a fucking pick 'em on paper right now, Ray. So it seems to me that if Jamal Hill didn't tear his Achilles, that he'd be the betting favorite over the former middleweight Alex Pineda.
I mean, the Achilles is a bad injury, but I'm sure with everything they have today, he's gotten the best treatment. He's got to be. I mean, he's not going to be on one wheel now. I mean, he's got to. How long ago was the injury?
It was in July.
Yeah. All right.
Modern medicine, Raymond. Right?
I mean, I just seen a guy with a torn Achilles. He didn't look that bad, and he's huge. So I'm saying that's not going to be a factor in this fight. And if it was, I don't think Jamal Hill should have even taken the fight. But I think he's going to have his wheels. Look, he can get it done with the boxing without a doubt.
Kenny?
Yeah, no, listen, I think it's interesting, but I will say this, Ray. I think 6 figures, 7 figures will get him to take the fight if necessary. If he's not 100%.
Yeah.
But I agree with your assessment in that in a lot of ways, Jamal's the on the feet. When it comes to boxing, I think he's the cleaner striker.
Yes.
I think he throws the straighter punches. I think he probably has the speed advantage as well. Whether his feet can get him in and get him out when he needs to, I don't know because of that Achilles. But I think I would probably agree with you, John, that if he was 100% healthy, that he might be the favorite heading into this. But Pereira, the leg kick, the left hook, that's a problem.
Yeah, I mean, it's a problem, but if you watch, I mean, he is, look, I love Alex Pereira. I love that brute power where he can generate from like a very short distance. But he is got a style where his hands are down and he's kind of, he avoids, he's got good awareness. But that's Jamal Hill could snipe him, man. I mean, that's the problem. I'd have to, like Izzy kind of did it, right? And that was, now you're going to add another 25, 30 pounds on a guy. I don't know. That's a great fight. Yeah. I'm loving this. I love the matchup, and I'm loving to see. I want to see that fight.
And I think another thing to consider is Jamal Hill's grappling as well. He's a brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I don't know if he's necessarily a high-level guy, but I think his grappling is probably going to be better than Pereira. If there's a knock on Pereira, aside from the things that you just mentioned, it's the grappling. Maybe he takes him down and goes, listen, I'm not even going to mess with him on the feet. I know that I can get the better of him on the ground and maybe submit him. let's take it to the ground. So I think people might not be considering that as well.
That's a good point, Kenny. But, and again, like, because his hands are down, that's part of the reason why he can generate that type of power. But it comes with, it comes with that other side where, so it's that cost-benefit analysis. I'm curious to see what's going to happen there.
I agree with you there.
Joe Rogan texted me in DC a video at 1:00 in the morning. Rogan is just obsessed with mixed martial arts. For the record, if you don't know now, you know. On the biomechanics of Alex Pineda's left hook and left leg kick explained, or his leg kick, not his left leg kick, but pretty interesting stuff that you can find on YouTube right now. But an absolutely fascinating main event. We're also seeing some money come in on Max Holloway against Justin Gaethje. It doesn't seem like you're in a predictive mood on this Monday morning, Ray, but how do you see the BMF lightweight championship?
No, you know what it is?
I call it champion.
You know what it is? I just like everybody. I don't want to start making picks, but another fun
Well, you fucking Mr. Congeniality now?
I just want to go to UFC 300, get Aljamain Sterling a win and enjoy myself. Everybody else is
Aljo's going to fight at what time? Like 5:30 in the afternoon, 6 o'clock?
I don't know. I have no idea. But he's on the prelims, so you got to – so that card starts at 8, 9, 10, 7 o'clock. Yeah, you're right. He's in the afternoon.
Davison Figueiredo and Cody Garbrandt are going to walk at like 3:10 p.m. It's even earlier than I thought.
Figueiredo's going to win. I'll predict that fight.
All right. Look at this guy, right? No problem with that. So in terms of Justin Gaethje and Max Holloway and that particular fight, what do you think Max needs to do to spring what is less of an upset than I guess it was 48 hours ago?
High volume. Just kind of what he did with Kattar. You know what I mean? I think just a high volume fight. Man, Gaethje hits like a freight train. He can't stand there and trade with him. Although he probably in his heart probably is going to end up doing that every so often. But I see a lot of movement, a lot of combos. I think he's got to use the Kattar fight as a template to getting it done, and that's a possibility. What are the odds on that fight?
We have all the odds that you can handle. Justin Gaethje was north of -200 for a while. Now he's -170. And Max Holloway is +142. But there was a time when you could get Max for like +178, and now he's down to +142. So found that particularly interesting. So real quick, Ray, if people want to see you in Las Vegas, obviously, depending on Aljo's post-weigh-in dinner, it's Tom's Watch Bar, New York, Friday, April 12th. But where will you be for this pay-per-view after Aljo disposes of Calvin Kattar?
I think they I don't know where I'll be. They throw you out. I would hope I was.
What's your room number, damn it?
Yeah, I would hope that. I would hope I'd be in the arena watching the fights, but that's not going to happen. No. So I don't know. I'll be somewhere on the strip. When I find out, I'll let you know. But I have no idea.
All right, buddy. When do you get to town? Wednesday, Thursday?
Wednesday around 6 o'clock.
All right. Well, don't be a stranger. Text us. Ken Flo and I will be there Thursday. And be an Anik and Florian podcast party.
Well, that's the way. You're coming in Thursday? That's it?
No, I'm coming in Tuesday, but, Team Anik and Florian will be whole on Thursday when Ken Flo goes wheels down. Cody Merrill will be there as well. Jason Anik.
Wow.
Alongside. Everybody essentially to Petrie. So.
Oh, man, let's get together. Come on, man. What are we doing Thursday night?
Yeah, we'll see. Not a lot of recreational time, but hopefully we can fit some in, You getting a haircut first, or are you going out looking like that?
I'm going out. This is the haircut. I got it 2 weeks ago.
All right. I'm just asking.
Or are you going out like that?
Are you mad because I didn't give any predictions today?
No, not at all.
Nah, I'm
not at all.
I'm not the prediction guy.
I'm not even mad. I'm just surprised you're not getting a haircut, You're a little bit higher in cider.
Wow. Yeah, we'll see. Right. I'll grease it down, shave. Yeah. I'll look like a million petunias. All
right. You have a great day and a better evening. Actually, Cody was going to dye his hair blonde in honor of Charles Dubronx Oliveira.
Wow.
But they told him it might damage it or thin his hair. See, for me, my hair's so thick and omnipresent that if I had known that all I needed to do was dye it blonde to thin it out, I'd dye every hair on my body. I think I might go do that.
Cody's got thick hair, man. Come on, he can do it.
Yeah, he does. Hey, Ray, anything else before we let you fly?
I think that's it, man. This was a
I think we probably exhausted that.
Mellow weekend.
Yeah. Hey, we'll see you for UFC 300. Let's go.
All right. I'll pick it up next week. Take it easy, guys.
The Ray Longo Minute every week here on the Anik and Florian podcast. And we are just getting going when it comes to UFC 300 stuff. We'll go probably 75 minutes later in the week, get you all of Ken Flo's predictions. And Kenny will also have $2,000 to spend, as will BP, on their wagers for UFC 300. Can't believe we're here already. Thank you to Ray Longo. Thanks to our producer, Cody Merrow. Don't forget, we will see you Friday night at Tom's Watch Bar with Cuervo, New York, 6:30 p.m. Eastern, alongside the former UFC flyweight champion, the Assassin Baby, Brandon Moreno. Also, don't forget, JonAnik.com for all of your merchandise needs. We have a special new design for UFC 300, and that is available right now. Sort of a nod to the old Ultiman logo from UFC. So you can check that out right now, JonAnik.com. Also, KennyFlorianMartialArts.com. The store for the Anik and Florian podcast eventually will migrate over to KennyFlorianMartialArts.com. But anything you need for the show right now, JonAnik.com, promo code One More Sleep for 20% off. And we appreciate you lining Cody's pockets and supporting the show. We will talk to you guys Wednesday night, full preview of UFC 300. Until then, for Ken Flo, I'm Jon Anik. Thank you for watching, for listening. Tell your friends. We'll talk to you Wednesday. Until then, you'll live.
To the bread, he's cornbread. Cornbread. He's cornbread. Cornbread. Life is so precious, do the best that you can. Keep your hands on the bar, he's the open man. He's cornbread. Cornbread. He's cornbread.